Oh my gosh. Hey, episode 2. Wow, can you believe it? I'm consistent enough to actually record a second episode. I'm kind of proud of myself, honestly. I never commit to anything. But here we are, hoping for a time when the US government isn't burning hundreds of years of civil rights to the ground. Wowie. Jeez, another week of absolute nonsense in America. Fantastic. Big fan. I'm not a fan. I hate it. This is the worst timeline. And I kind of want off this ride. But here we are. If you've been missing the news, if you haven't seen it, we have yet more turmoil in the Middle East. Here I am in my late 30s. I think there's been conflict in the Middle East for the entirety of my life. So almost 40 years. And I think, as best as I can tell, it goes back even earlier than that. But you'd think anyone would learn anything. But apparently there's lots and lots of money to be made in the military complex. Wow. So yeah, I mean, this is the worst kind of consistency, right? We don't want to be consistent on getting involved in Middle East conflicts. It's just those, oh God, it just sucks so badly. And this most recent stuff is it is literally genocide. I don't think any of us support genocide. Last I checked. I think if you just went up to anybody on the street and you were like, genocide, overall, how do you feel about that? I think we'd be very concerned if a person answered, oh gosh, huge fan. It's one of my favorites. Just getting rid of the unclean. Insane. It's wild. People deserve better. So, what is the actual news about this? If you haven't seen any articles or videos about the recent activity, I'll just briefly summarize. The U.S. performed a surprise strategic military operation. Turns out it was not a surprise. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. The U.S. performed a military operation, making a big show of an attack on the Iranian nuclear program. So I think they had a few different sites, quite a deployment of bombers and special tech. Lots of people are talking about the special tech. I just don't really care. The thing that's crazy is this is the same nuclear program that Iran has been supposedly building for the same number of years that I've been alive. So since I think the late 80s, I mean, that's when I was born, but I have memories of the 90s, this same threat being on the horizon. I don't know. I mean, it just seems like everybody's like, oh, they're weeks away. They're weeks away. It's right around the corner. We need to get in there and save everyone. But it just also then doesn't seem to happen. And I'm sorry, I don't think it's because of external meddling or interference. I don't think so. Just some guy. When I said surprise military attack, I mean that WikiLeaks, Pete Hegseth, of course, had to admit that there was yet another security leak. And Iran was able to move the fuel. And here we are again with lies and misinformation. At the end of the day, we're bombing brown people in the Middle East again. I think that sums it up pretty nicely. The big issue for me is that we are repeating the same mistakes over and over and over. The racism is veiled so thinly. It's not even veiled. It's just right out in front. You can't even say that it's being obscured in any manner. We just keep electing racist old white guys who keep telling you that minorities are evil, brown people are evil, and that we have to do incredibly cruel, evil shit to somehow save ourselves from ourselves. I have no idea. I mean, do you want another 9/11? This is how you get another 9/11. It seems like they are trying to force that. I mean, that would be another way to declare martial law and install dictator Hitler. I'm just so tired of this crap. I'm fairly exhausted. And then we add to the pile of horrors, oh good, with the recent Supreme Court decision that removes the power from lower court judges in issuing holds or stops against all these illegal executive orders. I tip of the iceberg. Now there's the birthright citizenship has been more or less revoked. Anyone's can be called into question. And on top of that, he revoked another 500,000 legal immigrants. He revoked their legal status. So there weren't enough bad apples that they had to make 500,000 more quote unquote bad apples. Like, come on. We just keep seeing the videos. Like, they're not going after criminals. They're not going after the, like, malcontents. They're just chasing regular people, good, hardworking folks that came here to pursue the American dream. Like, that's the stuff that all of us hear about. We hear about the immigrant who came here with a buck in their pocket and then built an empire. The craziest thing is that ICE is now quite literally using explosives to blast their way into people's homes. How is anyone okay with any of this? How is anyone okay with this? How can you look at that and be like, they're exploding their way into Americans' homes and disappearing Americans? It's completely insane. And that GIF I played absolutely sums it up. Oh gosh, I don't want to make this this talk show about politics, but here we are talking almost entirely about politics. Gosh, wowie wow. So let's kick it over to good news. Good news. Praise be that there might even be some good news. The first bit of good news, I want to call this out. This actually happened a couple of weeks ago. The DC Bar had its elections for president-elect, if I remember, is the title that we're looking at here. Yeah. So Pam Bondi and her brother Brad, old Bradleberry Bondi, Bradley boy, he said to himself, you know what? Why don't we get some loyal sycophant in on the DC Bar, right? Why don't we have someone who praises Master Trump? Why don't we have that person decide who's going to be in the federal court system? That sounds perfect to me. I don't know. That sounds amazing. The Bondis, God, even putting the picture up evokes a smell, a stank. He's kind of goofy looking too. Oh gosh. This is totally unfounded, but he seems like he would talk almost like Will Ferrell's impression of Harry Carey. If the moon was made of cheese, would you eat it? Brad here thought that he could win DC Bar. And huge shout out to all the lawyers, all of you fabulous practitioners of the law. You showed up in flying colors. So absolutely historic turnout. Here are the numbers. He ran against Diane Seltzer, who I hope I'm saying these names right and spelled all these names right. Those seem like they'd be pretty straightforward. Diane got almost 35,000 votes compared to Bondi's 3,500. The exact numbers were 34,982 to the Lady Seltzer and a paltry 3,490 to Mr. Bondi. That's good news. That feels nice. I just feel I needed to call that out because that happened a while ago, but that did prevent another Trumpster fire from happening in the federal court system. So the courts are trying, but the Supreme Court is just not making it easy. They just keep feeding the orange man, just feeding him more cheese. Jesus Creasus. It's completely insane. I think the best good news that we could have from this past week, I'm recording this on Sunday, June 29th, so there's a chance that some crazy shit could happen this afternoon, but I think I've caught most of this week, I hope. But the best good news of this week, I think, is Zohran Mamdani's, oh my gosh, I just butchered that, Zohran Mamdani's win in New York. No Cuomo. Are you kidding me? I cannot believe that New York City did not vote in another incredibly old, rich white man. Probably racist rich white man. I mean, Cuomo, there's no hiding it. Like, not a particularly swell fella. In fact, a fairly stanky manky, if I might say so myself. But with Zohran, oh my gosh, there's just so many layers to how fantastic electing Zohran is. He's new blood, right? So the old guard, get him the F out, right? We don't want people who are just going to bend over backwards and take money and grift and be crap faces. We hate them. I want some real politics, We want some politicians that will stand up for us. Zohran ran an incredible campaign. So if you haven't seen any of the information about the race, it's all happened. It's all in the past now. Two of the folks running against Cuomo endorsed each other. They basically said, listen, at the end of the day, either of us is a better choice than Cuomo. So endorsing each other. AOC, I believe, endorsed Zohran, which is great. We love her. She's very much focused on supporting the people. And she's doing that awesome tour with Bernie Sanders, which they're going straight to super red Republican districts where the Republican reps are not hosting town halls, not talking to the people, hiding, cowering in fear. And they're going and getting these insane record-breaking turnouts with double and triple overflow areas. And it's amazing. So let me just say, chef's kiss. Incredible to see Zohran come in hot. And speaking of coming hot, let me just say, Zohran is quite the handsome fella. Like, I can also see how he might capture the hearts of the waspy ladies of the Upper West Side or Upper East Side or wherever the wealth is in your, I don't know. I'm a regular peasant like all the rest of us. I have no idea where the money actually is. Maybe 84th and East End. But yeah, he's nice looking, right? Mom Donnie. Very, very nice. He looks great in this suit. And he also just looks friendly. So if you have a chance to see any of the videos and things that he ran in his campaign, it's going to sound crazy. Like you've never heard a politician run in this crazy way before. What he did was he went out on the streets and then he talked to the people on the streets. Just take a moment. He didn't, I'm sure he played a mean social media game, et cetera, but Zohran went out and asked New York City folks, what do you care about? What would matter the most to you? What would be the most impactful for you? Big surprise. Almost everyone was saying, cost of living, can't afford rent, can't afford food, can't afford anything. In infinite wisdom of listening to the folks that he interviewed and spoke to, he turned that into his platform and he ran on that, and go figure, Zohran won. So incredibly fantastic. I believe this was the mayoral race. Mayoral race. I doubted myself for a moment there, but yeah, I apologize if I've been saying this name incredibly wrong, but listen, I'm just your average American fella who may or may not be particularly good at pronouncing unique names. Just need him to execute on those things, right? He said he's going to work on cost of living. So if he can make that happen, it would just be absolutely incredible. Sorry, so for me, this is like a praise Jesus moment. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you so much. I mentioned in the previous episode about momentum and how it feels like the pendulum, how it feels like the pendulum is swinging back in the sort of liberal progressive favor, just like the X-Files. I want to believe. I want to believe in America, in democracy, in the things that I was taught as a child. That's what I want. I want to believe in America. I want to believe more than anything. It's an interesting time to be alive, to say the least. Like I said, thrilled to see that there's some liberal progressive action going on here. We're still dealing with the fascists in power, and they want to create a police state. They want to create, all kinds of crazy shit, like social credit scores. That's on the list, in case you didn't think. Like, Palantir basically wants to take everybody's data and create the most in-depth monitoring system of any government. So basically it would be like techno-fascist. All your connected devices would essentially be and sort of are right now, in case you didn't know, watching, listening, and reporting back to the fascist leaders to tell them who's been naughty and who needs to be deported to CCOT. Or Alligator Alley. Boy, won't that be fun. Jeezy, crazy. They're like touring the Alligator Alley area as if they didn't just make a concentration camp out in the friggin' Everglades of Florida. Almost called it Glorda. Stupid Glorda. Gosh dang it. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so technofascism, not okay. I do want to just kind of a bit of a side note. I've been in the market for a pair of new glasses. I've had the same pair of glasses for probably a decade. I've always been a Ray-Ban guy. I have Ray-Ban sunglasses. I actually have a pair, my current like spectacles, like vision glasses, are Ray-Bans. So I do love those. I think I might be in the market maybe for a new pair. I'm also a capitalist loving material slave, defining my life one purchase at a time. So if only there was like some way that I could combine my two loves of material slavery and techno-fascism autocracy. Oh my goodness. Meta, who I will always and forever just call Facebook. You can insist that your business name is Meta, but you're Facebook. You can try. You can try to be cool. Now, speaking of trying to be cool, holy shit, are you guys trying to make these freaking glasses cool? Can you calm down with these ads? I'm sure you guys, I'm sure you've seen, maybe if you've watched other videos. I'd certainly source content from Reddit. I browse Reddit all the time. But, wow. This is like every other ad on Reddit, which sucks incredibly badly with the amount of ads that's on the site these days. But, dude, really trying to make these things cool. Also, have you seen the ads? Like, the ads are a little bit ridiculous. There's one where there's like a woman wearing them while she's working a shift at a restaurant, like she's in chef garb. That to me is ridiculous. Like, how much are these things? Like, they've got to be incredibly expensive, right? Aren't they like $1,000 or something stupid? Okay, all right, they're not $1,000, but they are $380, $400 a pop, which no way am I spending hundreds of dollars on these glasses and then wearing them while I'm like manning the deep fryer, or I don't know, sweating intensely in the kitchen. Like, I can only imagine the kitchen environment would just destroy the cameras and all the sensitive electronics in these freaking glasses. To me, I like look at these ads and I'm like, it feels like AI wrote the script for these ads, right? Kind of showing, again, how out of touch good old snooker booger Zuckerberg really is. Like, he's just totally disconnected from reality. Also, like, can anyone say Big Brother? Like, these things are like the fascist spy cams. Like, there's no way that these things don't have some sort of Palantir backdoor where as the second you connect these things to your accounts, you're feeding every second of your life up to the fascist overlords. In fascist America, social media uses you to spy on your peers. Oh my gosh. And speaking of Zuckerberg, I keep seeing in the news how the billionaires are just spending their insane wealth doing all this crazy freaking nonsense. I think Zuckerberg recently took a trip with his 2 insanely enormous mega yachts and helicopter to do a paraskiing trip in South America. So I guess the Ray-Bans are selling pretty well, right? And speaking of excess, you've got Jeffy B, you've got Big Bezos and wife. Bezos and wife are still doing their multi-layered wedding tour of the world, which apparently is going to last a year, 2 years, 10 years. They're just never actually going to get married and keep doing ridiculous, lavish things. It's just like shoutcasting. It's just all up in your face, you know? They just love to show off their wealth. Like last year, I thought they did some insane multi-million Aspen thing. Maybe that was the engagement. Oh. And now they're renting out Venice? I saw an amazing post where someone painted over one of the like piazzas, like one of the squares, graffiti that says, if you can afford to rent out Venice, you can afford to pay taxes. Rent out Venice? Like all of Venice? You can do that? Why would you even want to do that? You know what? I've always wanted to live the Roman Catholic Vanilla Sky fever dream. I would just love that. Anyway, I'm sure it was amazing, but to me, it feels like an insane, ludicrous waste. Like, what a waste. What a waste. Yeah. So that brings me to our main story of tonight's show. Today's show. I don't know why I said tonight. But that brings me to the main story. Out of touch billionaires. The billionaires that are in the public spotlight right now working with the current administration. I'm not necessarily poking fun or calling out Michael Jordan or, I don't know, Taylor Swift or some of the other beloved billionaires that exist. Mark Cuban, right? Some folks out there have done really incredible, amazing things. But the wealthiest ones, something has gone sideways with the wealthiest ones. I remember not too long ago when like Musk and Bezos were on the, and Zuckerberg, like all these guys were on the ramp up in terms of billionaire wealth, their money just flying through the roof. People were talking about how these guys were like going to save humanity and change the world for the better. And I'm not trying to like take away achievements. Like, for example, SpaceX has done some genuinely cool things, very good things, bringing the cost of that stuff down. I also can't help but look more broadly at the achievements of these folks and kind of go, huh? Wait, what? I remember all this media attention about how, the Tesla battery packs were going to help us create like some sort of insane utopia, right? Everyone's wealthy or something like that. Or money doesn't matter anymore because we can all just have whatever we want. Woo! No. The thing is, like, this story has already been repeated once before. Like, in the 90s, you had Gates, like, kind of one of the first really famous billionaires, right? And he could have been even more wealthy, but he actually got bad advice from Mr. Buffett, who said to diversify. If he had kept all of his Microsoft money or all of his shares and stuff in Microsoft, he'd probably be the world's first trillionaire. We've seen this before, right? We've seen the fabulous wealth rocket. We've seen individuals amass fortunes equivalent to the GDP of countries. I haven't seen the changing of the civilization. So, like, have you heard about Musk's plan to lift everyone up from below the poverty line to a reasonable quality of life? Right? Oh, wait, no, hang on. So you must have heard Jeff Bezos is actually spending billions to cure cancer. And how Altman and all the AI folks, they're actually teaching AI to do regular stuff with the noble goal of not having to force people to work manual labor jobs. Did you know any of that? You heard all that, right? No? Because they fucking aren't. They are not. They are not going to. They're never going to spend their money on this. Like 10 years ago, they could do all these incredible things. Like, why didn't that happen? Well, frankly, because they've got their mega yachts touring the world, paraskiing up and down, who knows where. This is the unfortunate symptom of borderline infinite wealth. And I've actually seen this play out on a sort of smaller scale in my own life with some of the folks that I've worked with. We'll talk about that in a second. But here's the thing. The more money you get, the more sort of ridiculous of a caricature of yourself you become. Like, every part of your personality gets supercharged because, like, the normal inhibitors, like the normal friction of daily life, like having to deal with other humans, needing to make a paycheck, all this, it all dissolves. So, like, all of a sudden, you don't have any of the limiters that normal people do. Plus, you just have so much money that it changes how you think. It changes kind of who you are, potentially fundamentally. Quick anecdote from previous coworker. So I'm going to talk a little bit about business that I worked at for almost 6 years. I worked with an amazing, excellent human, Stephanie P. Another, interestingly enough, very, very talented salesperson, kind of like Mike Lane, who I talked about in a previous episode. Stephanie has shared some really cool stories with me. A part of her career was in the credit card processing industry. So, like, the businesses that process transactions for credit card companies. And some of the guys that, like, owned these businesses made insane money in a very short period of time, hundreds of millions of dollars. Not quite billionaires. I'm sure some of them ended up being billionaires, but hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. She had some really crazy stories about this stuff and about the industry itself. Like, you think you've heard about pay disparity. She's got some horror stories where that phrase pay disparity doesn't even come close to covering what's actually happening in there. But she once told me when she was working in the industry, her team was sort of regular top performers in sales. So that meant that you got to go to like yearly company parties, you would rub shoulders with the big boss. So she had, I think, some sort of a friendly relationship with one of the owners of those businesses. On one such occasion, there was a conversation that came up where they were talking about how the sudden wealth and the fabulous wealth impacted this guy's daily life. And he kind of took a moment to think about it, and he kind of got a little bit quiet, maybe a little bit like sullen. But basically he said that I have so much money that I can walk into any room and I can get anyone to do anything I want. That would probably change you pretty fundamentally. So just a quick random example, like if you walked up to somebody on the street and said, hey, go slap that random person over on the corner. You'd probably be like, what? Get out of here. I'm not slapping someone I don't know. But if that same person came up to you and was like, hey, I have 70 grand cash in my hand right now, go slap that person at the corner, you might be like, well, sorry to this guy. Now imagine that you've had enough money to get whoever you want to do whatever you want for decades. Imagine the kind of people that would surround you. Yes men, I think, is an understatement. Like the word sycophant, right? Parasitic a bit. It's not a great place to be. I also recognize that it's almost impossible to prevent that. People can't help but want to hitch the, wagon onto the caravan where the guy at the front is loaded, right? He made a lot of money. Maybe you can make a lot of money. I get it. I want to harken back to some of those 90s billionaires for a second. A lot of the billionaires out there, let me be careful. There are some billionaires out there. I don't know about a lot. There are some billionaires out there who've pledged to donate their fortunes when they pass on. That might seem like a real nice thing to do, right? That might seem like, yeah, the billionaires, they're doing right by us by giving all their money away when they die. But at the same time, I'm just like, after you die? Are you kidding me? We need help now, you treasure hoarding old bastards. Like, we need the help now. We don't need, how old is Gates? What, 60s, maybe 70s? He's probably not even that old. Maybe he's late 50s. Who knows? However old he is, he has more life to live. Like, we need help now. And then you've got younger billionaires who, 60 years before you kick the can and then finally the money gets distributed? These people are sequestering trillions of dollars from the poor, from the middle class, from the working classes. And they're not reinvesting in the same way that one might harken back to antiquity. We love talking about the Roman Empire, right, guys? Come on, Roman Empire. Rich Romans would pave the streets around their homes in marble. They would set up public gardens, spaces of beauty. Maybe not the perfect example, but Roman society was all kinds of effed up and there was a slave caste and et cetera, et cetera. But the point stands, there was a certain expectation of civic investment from the extremely wealthy. Today's billionaires, they just keep finding new ways to spoil themselves and then success bomb the rest of us as though it's attainable in any way for most of us. I want to share a fairly staggering number. Huge shout out to Jon Stewart, Daily Show, and those folks for bringing on Matthew Desmond. Matty D, the big Desmond. This fabulous person is a Princeton He's a Princeton sociologist. The segment that he was on with John, he talked about some of the stuff that he's written. He explains that if the top 1% of Americans paid taxes that they already owe, no new tax levies, right? Nothing new, just what they're owed, the U.S. government could collect $175 to $177 billion a year. Coincidentally, that number is enough money to bring everyone up from below the poverty line to above the poverty line. That is life-changing. That is no longer worrying about where food comes from tomorrow. That's crazy. And we don't want to do that? I mean, Fox News doesn't want you to do that. They want the billionaire propaganda to just keep running. More and more of this data keeps coming out. And we're looking at this, and we're basically speed running the conditions that created the French Revolution. The tech, billionaires are sort of the new robber barons. they're crushing working classes, raising rents, raising prices, and honestly have no intention to provide relief, right? Because they would have. If you can, if you could, you would. If you can, you do. Sometimes. I mean, these folks will survive the whole Trump situation most likely just fine. Even a collapse, they'd probably be fine. But the rest of us, like mortgages, student loans, car loans, credit card debt, friction of everyday life. Some of us have kids. I mean, it's the tip of the iceberg. And most of us are fairly underwater. Debt is rampant. And it's a scary time. It's very scary. How could we fix this, right? How can we fix this? Well, let's think back to the beginning of this. We have examples like Zohran. And we have people educating like Matthew Desmond, saying, look at history's examples. Cough, cough, Hitler, cough. Look at the robber barons of industrialization. Like at the end of, I think it was Rockefeller's life, is one of them. You know, some of these guys felt so bad that they famously gave all their money away near the end of their life to, you know, provide endowments for universities, found schools. And that was, you know, kind of like a very significant kind of civic change in how they invested their money. But it took them to the end of their life to finally realize, oh crap, I could have been helping people this whole time. Let me just reinforce this point. Right now, the best way that we can impact these things are to vote for change while we still can. I don't know if democracy will be here in another 4 years, but right now, at least, there's the appearance of elections and voting. And Zohran Mamdani is our new NYC mayor. I mean, that to me seems like the, you know, Musk voting control and all this other stuff that's flying around the rumor mill or being litigated is not yet in place to fully control elections. That may change, but right now we can still vote. So vote for the new guard. Vote for people like Zohran. Vote for people like AOC. Vote for folks that want to make things better for you. Don't buy the propaganda. Look at Fox News as a billionaire sort of propaganda machine, the fascist propaganda machine. They're never going to tell you the truth. Look to individuals, look to content creators to provide you a more reasonable view of the truth. I'm going to try my best, but even for me, it's hard to sift through all the noise. Anyways, at the end of the day, I want to call out that, like, we've had billionaires now for a while, 30 years longer. And it feels like the billionaires had their shot to make impactful change. And they didn't. I remember when it was quote unquote cool to be a billionaire. But yeah, it turns out it's really not. Anyways, that's our show. Thanks very much for watching.